Going on, Falcon fan? This is your boy Ricardo coming back at you with another video. So today, guys, we're going to talk about um the Atlanta Falcons coaching search. It's on its way. Matty Ice has been really busy. I mean, 100% he's been busy for us already. Right? Has had 5 interviews. There's report 3 more guys have been requested to interview. We're going to talk about those. But today we're going to talk about the 5 guys that have been interviewed, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts on all 5 of those guys. Um, hey, like the title said, who's going to be the man to lead this new era? It's definitely a new era. Arthur Blank, clean house, bring in the franchise leading quarterback back into the fold to run this team, to be the president of football. We heard from Matty Ice yesterday when he did his exit from CBS Sports to come in and make sure that he was on the job. I think he was already busy. You can tell by the interview he already got with one of the leading candidates and John Harbaugh today. So um, it's busy. It's reported that Mike McDaniel's supposed to be interviewing as well. So a lot of moving parts here for this Atlanta Falcons team, trying to get these head coaches in. This is a big moment because it's 8 teams vying for a head coaching positions to be filled, and it's not a whole bunch of candidates that's enticing. You're gonna have to take some chances, and that's just the way it goes. So, guys, we want to get into it. With that being said, if you're not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification bell so you're not drop another video. Please hit the like button. So I know you guys are here to talk about. Then please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come here and talk about these your Atlanta Falcons. So, guys, like I said, let me know about my hats. I've been rocking new hats every day. You probably seen some of these hats before, but I'm gonna recycle some of them. But if you haven't seen them, let me know what you think about my hat collection. Um, got all kind. I love wearing hats, especially Atlanta Falcon hats. So I rock those hats. That's what I do. This is a new hat right here. Look at it. It's corduroy, guys. So little flavor to it. But we're going to get right into the coach search. So when we talk about the coaches, so the Atlanta Falcons interviewed 14 coaches the last coaching cycle, right? And everybody was ready, want to know who was going to be the next coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Took time, they was patient. We heard about all the different coaches that they interviewed. Um, we of course we thought Bill Belichick was a forerunner, and they ended up Raheem Morris, right? At the time, a lot of people was a little iffy about it. But we all came around to it because Raheem Morris is, you know, did paid his dues. He was a head coach at a young age. He came in, had paid his dues, was a Super Bowl winning, coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. So he got another chance to come in. He had everybody motivated, right? Came in with the speech to talk about outrunning the South and all those good things. It just didn't work out for him, and here we are today, right? So it'll be interesting to see Atlanta Falcons go down that road and actually decide to interview that many coaches again. I don't think they're going to go that many coaches deep because honestly, I don't think the coaching pool is that deep that as as it was last time to bring in all those guys. But you look what the Atlanta Falcons are doing; they're bringing in experienced coaches, right? Interviewing those guys that has been head coaches before. They're bringing in, the coordinators, the offense and defensive coaches. And then when you look at those coaches, they're up and coming, right? Guys that's, the next best guy, the next Ben Johnson, the next Sean McVay, right? Those guys, you start looking at those guys. So we're definitely going to take a look at some of these coaches today. The next Mike Tomlin, right? And guys, really, let me know what you think about these moves that the Falcons are making to, right now so far. Um, your opinions, your opinions, right? Who you think they should go with? I'll tell you mine. But at this point, I'm not 100% sure, man, because I don't know. Because if we all knew that if they hired this one guy, it's going to be a home run, you know, they would already be on did it. So you got to take your time with these things. And then at the same time, you have to be wanted as well, right? So just because you interview a coach, you know, y'all have to be a fit together, right? So they might not like, what you're talking about, and you might not meet their demands or vice versa, right? It kind of happened with Bill Belichick the last coaching cycle. Um, it was believed that the whole organization went in line to bring him in to be the guy. Um, this time we won't have a situation. It's going to be up to pretty much probably two guys, Arthur Blank, Matt Ryan, and if they can agree on a guy and seal the deal on it, that's where it's gonna be. All right, so let's get some of these comments. So you holler at all the people that's out here that don't post it already. So thank you guys for checking in. We think about the possibility of getting John Harbaugh. Yeah, we're gonna talk about him. He's gonna be the first guy we're gonna talk about because he was the last guy to interview. It's between us and the Falcons, Giants, right? That's what the reporting is. Um, us and the Giants, John Harbaugh guys, Falcons should hire a young coach. Recondo with another video. That's right. Okay. All right. So let's get into it, guys. John Harbaugh, right? He was the last guy that the Atlanta Falcons actually talked to. So when you look at a guy like John Harbaugh, right, guy that has the experience, that been in the league, been a head coach for 18 seasons, right? So you already know you're getting a guy that obviously knows how to build a team culture, right? We that's without a doubt. He's been doing it for a long time. He's going to be the CEO of the team. He's going to bring that experience in. He should be a culture builder, right? He's going to bring the winning experience, right? These are the things you expect to get from a guy like John Harbaugh that's been coaching for a long time, right? Now he's a guy that did not come up in the traditional sense from a coordinator standpoint. So, like I said, nearly 2 decades of coaching experience with one team, right? That already tells you he had 12 playoff appearances, 4 AFC Championship games, and 1 Super Bowl appearance with a win. Um, after the Ravens playoff drought, he had a drought for a couple of years before Lamar Jackson got there, of course. So it's all about the quarterback. We all know that. But he went back to his winning ways. A 14-2 season where he secured a 1 seed, right? We know about that. He was the coach of the year in that 2019 season, the same year Lamar Jackson won the MVP, right? So you coincide, your quarterback winning the MVP and you getting coach of the year. That speaks, where you can say it's all about the quarterback. Um, Now he comes from the special teams, right? He was a coordinator for special teams from 1998 to 2006, where he moved to the defensive back coach. From that's when he jumped to the head coaching spot. So, this guy is a guy that didn't come up with the coordinator experience. So, if you do bring a guy like John Harbaugh in, he has the 18 years experience, but he does not have the experience of being a coordinator, right? So he would have to bring in some experienced coordinators to build up this team. So you would expect him as a head coach being that long as a head coach to be able to build a really good staff to bring in. I think the biggest question would be who would be his offensive coordinator, right? To work with a young Michael Penix Jr. That would be the question they would ask him. If you're going to come in, who would be your offensive coordinator? What is your mindset? What is the ideal of working with a Michael Penix Jr., right? That would be one of the questions they would ask him. So when you look at a guy like John Harbaugh, he's going to get the experience. You're going to get somebody that can build a team, that know how to build a staff, right? That's going to be the manager of the team. He's not going to be, like I said, not going to be calling the defense or the offense, but he's going to be the overseer. Sort of like where Raheem wanted to try to do these last 2 seasons, where he went out and got inexperienced coordinators, and I think that's what his mistake was. Instead of going out to get guys that had already had experience doing those things, he went and brought in 2 guys who had never called plays before, and I think that's what will really doom him at the end, right? because he got over it 1 year with Jimmy Lake, and he stuck with Zach Myers, Zach for 2 years, right? He stuck with him for 2 years. So that's where I think Raheem Morris, felt itself. The question would be, if Jim Harbaugh come in, who would be those coordinators, right? And one of the things that we want to make sure that um, whoever the new coach is, they can develop Michael Penix Jr., right? Um, you have to go down that path. That should be something Atlanta Falcons looking at. I know a lot of people thinking that it's Michael Penix Jr. might not be the guy, but at this point in time, it really does not matter if you think that or not. The Atlanta Falcons have to go down that road, right? The guy only played 12 games. He only started 12 games his whole career. So you have to give it a chance to see if he's the guy. And if he's the guy, you're gonna need somebody to develop him, right? That's just the bottom line. They invested an eighth round pick in him, right? It's cheap. It's cheap for your organization if you can get a young quarterback to develop. You look at the blueprint around a lot of teams building really good teams, right? They're able to utilize the cheap quarterback salary on a good young quarterback. And you look at what the New England Patriots was able to do. They had a young quarterback. They went and built that team. Look what they're doing now. Sean Payton decided to go that route. Yes, he had to get off and up under Russell Wilson's contract, but look what he's been able to do, right? This is the way to go. If you want to build a team, you need to build it with a young quarterback. Um, for all intents and purposes, I wouldn't even ask about Kirk Cousins. I think he needs to go. I think if Matt Ryan trying to build his team the right way, they need to get rid of Kirk Cousins, right? I don't want to hear nobody saying that we're going to come in and we're going to try to win now with Kirk Cousins. I think that's not the right approach to this new era. If you're going to clean house, you need to clean house and clean the mindset as well. And that means to build a team the correct way and stop trying to put band-aids on it and trying to do it fast, right? Build with this young roster and try to build it the right way. And you got to start with a quarterback. We don't know if Michael Penix Jr. is the guy. However, he's your guy right now because he only played 12 games. You have to see your investment, see if it's worth it at least, right? If you're going to throw away investment after 12 game sample size, you're not doing yourself injustice. You're not doing the player any justice. You're not helping your salary cap by trying to go around and bring some kind of another veteran or adding another young quarterback to this mix, and you don't even know what you got. I think the smartest thing for them to do is to bring in a bridge quarterback and try to develop Michael Penix to see if he's the guy. If he's not the guy, well, now you know, but you're not 100% sure about that now. After 12 games, it's not enough of a sample size, and anybody that tells you it is, they're not being genuine. They're not being honest about this whole situation that that Michael Penix had found himself in. You have to ride out with that. So, um, and that's the way you look at it. So they already interviewed John Harbaugh, but he would be the guy that come in and would be the CEO of the football team, right? A guy that's going to look over the whole football team, which is the special teams, the defense, the offense. He's not going to be calling plays and things like that because that's not his forte. He never did that in his career. He was a special team coach and he was a defensive back coach. He never called plays, his tenure as coaching, but he has had successful, being able to hire staff and all those good things. So that's where you're gonna have to look at it and see if John Harbaugh is the guy. So right now, of course, because of the experience and things like that, I wouldn't mind having John Harbaugh, but like I said, the questions I would want to would clear would what I would want to know is who would be offensive coordinators, um, who would be both his coordinators, defense, offensive coordinators, and who's going to develop the young quarterback. Those would be my main things. I don't worry about him being able to create a culture here, build a team here, and things like that. I think would be is your coordinators and who's going to, help develop the young quarterback. Those would be my questions when you think about a guy like John Harbaugh. And I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Let's look at some of these comments here. Um, Before we go on to the next coaching interview, uh, Eddie says Harbaugh is looking for several options that fits his needs, not just a head coach. That is right. He's not just a head coach. Rich McKay, is that how you spell it? He's in blank ear. I hope not, man. I hope we're not don't have to hear from Rich McKay no more. We do know that they did lay out the interviewers that's in the room. It's Josh Blank, Arthur Blank's son, um, Greg Beatles, Arthur Blank, Matt Ryan, and some other guys from the consultant team that came in. So that's who's in the room. So Rich McKay is not in the room. So if he is giving Arthur Blank some wisdom, Arthur Blank had to go back and brief him what he heard and then ask him. So I think at this time in the real, I think this hire would not be influenced by Rich McKay because I know he's not even in the room. We got a statement here. Falcons might hire Green Bay head coach. He was a Boston College head coach before going to Green Bay. Um, you talking about a defensive coordinator? Yeah, I don't know when they're going to interview him. I heard that his name thrown out there, but I don't know if when the interview is set up to take place. Um, I will say how much did LJ get developed under Jim Harbaugh? Right, that's a question. So he brought in look who his coordinators brought in. He brought in Todd Monken, who worked well with that type of quarterback, and of course Greg Roman, who worked well. Look at Greg Roman. He worked with um what his name? The kid from San Francisco. I can't think his name right now. Colin Kaepernick. There you go. Colin Kaepernick worked with Colin Kaepernick, and he worked with Lamar Jackson, Greg Roman, and of course Todd Monken. So those are the the offensive coordinators that John Harbaugh brought in, and those are the right types of offensive coordinators to work with a guy like Lamar Jackson because they like that type of player, right? So of course, the top Monken probably wouldn't be a good fit for a Michael Penix Jr. So he would have to bring in another, type of offensive coordinator to work um, with Michael Penix. It wouldn't be a Greg Roman type or a Todd Monken type. I don't think so. You look at the quarterbacks that Todd Monken has a lot of success with. Of course, you look at a guy like Lamar Jackson. You look at what he was able to do at the University of Georgia with Stetson Bennett. Then you go look at other teams. I think he had Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken, when he was his other stint he had in college. So he's more of a you know type of dual threat kind of quarterback kind of guy. And of course, we know Greg Roman. That's what his bread and butter is. They are big on the running game, but which would benefit Atlanta, but I don't think that fits Michael Penix Jr. skill set. Say John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh just got married again. She's black and she's from Georgia. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's probably why he already did interview at Atlanta because he was already at the house, right? Um, I know John Harbaugh is a coach and players developer. His resume speaks for itself, especially when he loses all his coaches constantly and still wins. Exactly. You're 100% correct. That's why I said he that this is nothing we would have to worry about when it comes to him being able to create a staff, being able to put the people in the right places. The question is this: who are those people going to be? That's all I'm asking because you got a young quarterback that got a certain kind of skill set that you got to be able to develop and get him to where he needs to go. Right? It's not the same as Lamar Jackson's. It's completely different. So that will be my question. But you are correct. It would be somebody you wouldn't have to worry about him being able to put people in places to be able to do things like that. He is um, able to do all those things. So I agree with you 100%. You won't have no issues there from John Harbaugh. If Harbaugh is hired, you better hope he doesn't bring Todd Monken with him. That will be ugly for Penix. That's exactly what I just said. Penix would not be the guy. I mean, Monken is not the right guy for Michael Penix Jr. And that would be the question. And Matt Ryan would be able to, see that right away. Matt Ryan knows football. He knows Todd Monken offense don't work with Michael Penix Jr. And he could see like, nah, he's not the right guy. That's why you bring a football guy in like Matt Ryan to be able to kind of look at those kind of things. Because Eddie, if me and you can tell that Todd Monken wouldn't be right for Michael Penix, we would hope, Matt Ryan with his football knowledge be able to see the same thing. Um, by saying MPG is not the guy doesn't mean that he's a bad player, but just not for the Falcons. You are correct, but the point I'm making is you got the kid for another 3 years, so you have to figure out that, right? Because the question is now you look at the draft, it's no quarterback in the draft that's you can definitely say is going to be the next guy, and then you look at the free agency pool, there's nobody that's coming on the market that you can say is going to be the guy as well. So. I think you have to give it a shot. Just my opinion. You know, Michael Penix Jr. is 4-8, and I don't know what happened to our culture when it comes to winning or patience when we don't even give a kid a whole season to see if he can play. I don't know what happened. What happened to us? Are we so impatient that this guy threw for 313 yards in week 4 against the Commanders, right? They beat the Buffalo Bills, right? He threw 4 touchdowns in Indianapolis against the Indianapolis Colts. He's not the reason they lost those games, right? So we have seen some some good things from Michael Penix Jr. Just not to say that he's not the guy. I'm not saying he's the guy, but I'm just saying like I can't believe that people are already saying that he's not the guy after 12 games. Like, come on, man. I like it's not the reason he's not the reason they lost some of those games. So I'm just throwing it out there. All right, let's go to our next guy. Um, and the next guy will be Kevin Stefanski, right? And you look at a guy like Kevin Stefanski. So to get Kevin Stefanski, I'm just go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. To get Kevin Stefanski, you're gonna have to look past the last 2 seasons. That's really the only way. The only way you could justify bringing in Kevin Stefanski. You have to look back and say, well, those last 2 seasons didn't count, and it wasn't his fault that the Cleveland Browns were so bad. That's what you gotta say. That's what you got to say. It wasn't his fault that the Cleveland Browns was so bad. So that's the first thing you have to do. When you're looking at Kevin Stefanski, say the last 2 seasons, 8-26, wasn't his fault, right? Well, he was the head coach. Let's go there. He was head coach there for 6 seasons. Now, but it wasn't all bad, right? He was the first coach since 2002, if I'm not mistaken, to get the Cleveland Browns into the playoffs and with a win, right? Now, it's been inconsistent at the quarterback position for him for years. So, he is going to have a little excuse. But the question is he the guy to develop a young quarterback, right? You look at the couple of years he had with Baker Mayfield, I thought those years was promising. Baker Mayfield did take an injury, right? And kind of derailed that whole situation. If you go back to the whole, Odell Beckham situation when his dad going out and posting saying that Baker Mayfield ain't targeting his son, the kind of locker room kind of went in turmoil with that. That's why Baker Mayfield ended up being out. But do you credit Kevin Stefanski not being able to handle that situation better, right? Of course, we know Kevin Stefanski was in Minnesota. Some of his best offensive work with Kirk Cousins, and a lot of people thinking about that. Like I said, I think Kirk Cousins needs to leave. That would be the question: do Kevin Stefanski wants to be able to, continue to coach a guy like Kirk, or is he fine trying to go with the young quarterback in Michael Penix Jr., right? But you look at his career. He was 2-time coach of the year during his time the um with the Cleveland Browns. No, so one thing I can say about Kevin Stefanski is that you look at um he's an offensive minded coach. And I think the Atlanta Falcons, I talked about this the other day. I think the Atlanta Falcons would be smart to go down this road with an offensive minded coach, a coach that call plays. So if he do hire an offensive coordinator, it would be somebody to assist him. But if that guy was to get poached, things would not change for your quarterback because the guy that's at the helm is that offensive coach. That's some of the things that you would love to see when the Atlanta Falcons looking, especially and you looking for an offensive minded coach. In my opinion, I really believe that Atlanta Falcons should consider, going offensive minded coach because if you look at some of the best coaches today and the way they run the organization, offense is kind of taking over for by the NFL. You look at um, Kyle Shanahan, you look at Andy Reid, you look at Sean McVay, you look at Matt LaFleur, you look at Ben Johnson, you look at Liam Cohen. Like you see this trend, what's going on. All these head coaches are guys that's running their offense, but they're running the teams as well, and that tells me that offense is not changing, right? And if you find a quarterback that can grow with you, look at a guy like Sean Payton, right? What he was able to do with Drew Brees for all those years. Look at Tom Brady, what he was able to do with Mike McDaniels for all those years. The offense does not change, right? It becomes the staple and it creates an identity for the team because the head coach does not change, right? The offensive scheme system does not change. It's there. It's their bread and butter. That's what they do. But if you go in and get a guy like we talked about with John Harbaugh, he our offensive coordinator, the offense does well. Somebody's going to take the offensive coordinator. You got to start all over again. So that's what I'm thinking about. And I think they should consider that, right? I think that I'm not saying that has to be the main thing that they do, but when they do decide to go down this road, I think that needs to be considered. And just in my opinion, I like that concept because by having an offensive coordinator as your head coach, he's the man. Your scheme is not going to change. And like I said, there are blueprints out there. Um, Look at Drew Brees. Like I said, you look at Andy Reid, you look at Sean McVay, you look at Kyle Shanahan, you look at Ben Johnson, you look at Liam Cohen, you look at Matt LaFleur. You see the trend, guys. All these guys I just talked about. Guess where they was this weekend? They're in the playoffs. You look at David Canales in the playoffs. They're all offensive minded coaches and they're head coaches where their offense is not going to change. Right. So I didn't make the rules. I'm just telling you where the trend is going, right? And that's what you got to look at. Now, it is some anomalies out there. You look at a guy like Mike Tomlin. He's not an offensive guy. He hired an offensive coordinator, right? And we just talked about Jim Harbaugh as another guy. But those guys been coaching for like 18, 19 years. So they're not something new. They've been doing it for a long time. So if you get a guy like John Harbaugh, that would be the reason why you do that because he could buck the trend to where the NFL is going right now, hiring all these offensive minded coaches. Right, the only coach that's pretty much that's left right now is a couple two. Right, you got the one in Tennessee, not in Tennessee with the Houston Texans, your defensive minded coach, and then you got Seattle's coach is defensive minded, and then of course Mike Tomlin. Right, everybody else pretty much in the playoffs. Sean McDermott as well. But everybody else pretty much is offensive minded coach, and you see the success that they're having. So Kevin Stefanski would be that guy. Like I said, is a guy that you already know that knows how to build a staff. He did it for 6 seasons in Cleveland. You know he knows how to utilize his running back. You look at the guy he had this supposed to guy like Nick Chubb. So we know he'll bring that West Coast style offense. Guess what, guys? He falls up under that Mike Shanahan tree as well. So a lot of things that Atlanta Falcon does well already, Kevin Stefanski will be able to bring that in. The caveat is you got to look past those first 2 seasons. So that's what I would say about a guy like Kevin Stefanski. All right, let's get some of these comments in. T. Terry says, Um, Michael Penix Jr. will be great with Matt Ryan in charge. Yeah, I think he would be able to bring some kind of help to that quarterback, situation because he's there. When they finally got to the quarterback they needed, he was looking decent. Yeah, I'm a Michael Penix Jr. fan, but I'm biased, of course. But I like what I seen from Michael Penix. I just think he need more time, man. That's why I hate the fact that he got injured. I just think he need more time. Steph Stefanski would be my pick based on the team nucleus, and he's going to always have a good DC, which won't be a worry. Like I said, for me, you have to look past, and that's what everybody's doing because you see a lot of fans like hell no, hell no. But I see a lot of people, leaning towards a guy like Kevin Stefanski. And for me, like I said, if you get an offensive minded coach, I'm not mad at that at all. And we know he knows how to work offense, especially run game. That's just something he's really really good at. Um, Not only his offensive guy, but he adjusts his powerful system to any defenses. And
Smart. They want to be tough. They
and
want to be physical.
and he
Those are three
played
critical.
and he played in the NFC North, man, with those guys hard nosed. So he knows really really good football. Um, Terry Stefanski is from Philadelphia. He grew up in the area where Matt Ryan is from. That's his key with the job. He might be that guy. Like I said, man, like I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Stefanski end up being the guy. So guys, don't shoot Matt Ryan if he does decide to pick Kevin Stefanski, because I know a lot of people do not want this to be the guy because you guys looking at last two seasons, how he handled the whole quarterback situation, which he's not at fault. He's not 100%, without fault in those situations, man, because we know he kind of felt like Dylan Gabriel was better than Shadur Sanders. Um, I'm not going to kind of blame him for the Deshaun Watson whole thing because I'm pretty sure, you know, a guy that was probably top four quarterback during the time when they decided to trade for Deshaun Watson. Yes, he had all those issues. Without a doubt, he had all those issues, off the field. But for his talent on the field, it was supposed to be a home run, you know, thing for them to go in and bring Deshaun Watson. It just didn't work out, man. Guys, first of all, he was suspended for the first 11 games of the season. Then, you know, he stayed injured. So we really don't know how the Deshaun Watson, you know, Kevin Stefanski, duo would even work because they never really got a chance to get to see it in action, completely. So that's where that thing kind of fell apart for Kevin Stefanski with Deshaun Watson. Right. So guys, let me know what you think about Deshaun Watson. I mean Kevin Stefanski. As the next head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Is he the guy? And don't be surprised that he actually might be the guy. All right. Okay. Our next guy is Aiden Dure. Aiden Dure. So Aiden Dure would kind of fall up under. He would be like you're finding your diamond in a rough, kind of almost, right? A guy like what they did with Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, right? A guy that's coming in, defensive line coach at his last stint with the Dallas Cowboys, come in to be the defensive coordinator the last two seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, right? He would be that kind of guy. Um, and your Mike Tomlin, right? So nobody, the guy that's gonna fly up on the radar and could be the next bright young coach that we haven't heard about yet, right? This is where you make sure you take up all stones and make sure it's a guy that you really want to maybe consider, right? Bright young coach coming up. He's playing really good up on the McDonald's defense, right? Last year they was 10-7. This year they're 14-3. Um, and he got those guys playing. Now, of course, like I said, people might want to give McDonald more the credit, right? He coming from Baltimore, putting his scheme in there, but Dure has definitely been good. You go back and look what he did up under Dan Quinn, like I said, with the Dallas Cowboys, the defensive line coach had those defenses playing really good. So this young guy here is a guy that a lot of people haven't heard about yet, but could be, like I said, the next young great coach that we don't know about. And to me, it's all about his interview and his vision for what he's going to bring to Atlanta Falcons. That would only to me would be the thing to sell him to the team, because his resume is real. It's real, recent, right? It's not something that's gonna stand a lot of ticket time. This is the guy when I talk about no experience being the head coach, come in, good team building. He would definitely have to put some really good coaches around him to be the guy. But this hire here would probably surprise mostly everybody if the Atlanta Falcons decide to go with DeRay. Um, and that means he really wowed them in the interview process. That would tell me a lot, and that means they seen something that we didn't know about, and we're going to be surprised by it. It's kind of like when they hired Dan Quinn. We knew Dan Quinn a little bit because of the Legion of Boom, but we didn't know that he was going to be able to do some of the things he was able to do. Real good team builder was Dan Quinn. He had a really good solid scheme. He actually went out and hired some great coaches to come in. Um, and guess what? Dan Quinn came from the Seattle Seahawks. So that would be interesting to see. But looking at a guy like DeRay, that would be something that that we'll just have to see. It'll be a surprise to me, guys. I'll be honest with you. But going out there, put your name in the pot to get your head coaching, you know, out there right now is good for him. If it's just coming, going out there getting practice in the interview process. But at the same time, he could have walked the Atlanta Falcons, just like Mike Tomlin walked the Roonies when they decided to pick him as their new head coach. So you never know. That's why you put your name out there and come out there and be a head coach. But personally, for me, if the Atlanta Falcons go this, it would be definitely a surprise. And he one good thing about him as well, he previously coached overseas, right? Um, he was a defensive coordinator from 2011 2016 that overlapped a bit with NFL responsibility. So he has coached international players as well. So, like I said, it's more um, that we would learn about, Aiden if he was to become the head coach. There's not a lot of stuff we know about him, and it'll be interesting to see if they bring in and what staff he build in, you know, to boost up his team. Eddie said the Rooney Rule with him. Like I said, I'd be surprised if he was to get picked. Which way do you think Matt is going to lean? Offense. We have two out of the last were defense. I really believe he's going offense. I really do. I mean, like I said, you just listen to my last little whole little speech about look at the trends right now of all the coaches that's in the playoffs, all the head coaches, they all offensive minded coaches pretty much, right? And we look at the last couple of Super Bowl winners, Nick Sirianni, um, you got Andy Reid. I'm just saying, man, offense is the new trend, right? You got to have a good solid defense, but you need a good talented offensive mind to come in today's to be able to do something. You need a quarterback too. Don't get me wrong. You got to have a quarterback to be able to make some of that stuff work. But man, you see what Kyle Shanahan able to do with Mr. Irrelevant himself, Brock Purdy, which we can start calling him that because he don't want some playoff games now where he's starting to get up there with playoff wins, and we gonna have to start calling him Mr. Irrelevant. Um, Durez the next Dan Quinn. The Falcons don't need that anymore. And that's why I say he kind of reminded Dan Quinn. Came from Seattle, right? Um, Dude is going to be good and successful, but I just don't think he's going to be the guy in Atlanta when Blank wants to win now. I wish McDonald would have had made him the DC in Seattle because he can coach. Yeah, man, he can. He can coach. Right, right. That's enough for him. All right, let's get to everybody's favorite guy, and I know that's what everybody been waiting for me to talk about here. Um, because I know you guys been waiting on it, and we're gonna go ahead and pull this name up, Clint Kubiak. Right, this is where most of you guys have pretty much, and from what I've seen, if I look out there, most of you guys are leaning towards this young, young upcoming offensive coordinator right here, Clint Kubiak. Right, they look at what he was able to do with the running game, with the Seattle Seahawks. Look what he was able to do his time with the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints. Right, you're looking at the time he was able to do with all those teams, and you say, um, I can see where um, he can use Bijan Robinson. He can use that wide zone running scheme, right? Which comes from where, guys? We all know um, the Mike Shanahan tree, right? His pops, Gary Kubiak, played up on the John Elway for years with Mike Shanahan. He actually won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos as a head coach. Of course, you had Mr. Peyton Manning as his quarterback at the time, but you know, that Kubiak family, that tree goes all the way back to Mr. Bill Walsh himself, the West Coast style offense, right? That wide zone running scheme. This is where, when you look at a guy like Clint Kubiak, um, is he the next Sean McVay? Is he the next Kyle Shanahan? Is he the next Matt LaFleur? Is he the next Kevin O'Connell, right? Those are the guys you're looking at, and you're thinking, could Clint Kubiak be that guy? That's the kind of innovative offense you want to see. Um, the question would be his staff. He would have to build his staff. He would also be a new time head coach. But this is where, when I talked about the trends of being a young um, offensive minded coach coming in, this is where he could grow with the young quarterback. Right now, it would take some tweaking. Michael Penix Jr. I would think you want to start having Michael Penix Jr. more up on the center instead of like the pistol, whatever Zach Robinson wanted to do most of his season. You go look at Michael Penix Jr. Yes, he can play up on the center. Um, that was a misnomer. You go look at his game tape in Indiana and in Washington. He did play up on the center in some free snaps. Yes, most of his stuff wasn't shotgun, but he did play up on the center. Um, and both of those teams. So he does have the ability to play on the center, be able to do play action passes, be able to do keepers, right? Be able to sell that wide zone that makes it work so well because you're coming up under center, right? And we all know everybody in that front seven is biting on Bijan Robinson if they think he's getting the rock. And that opens up so much in the passing game, right? For Michael Penix to use, what he been gifted to do, and that's utilize that arm. So um, he would be a lot of people's favorite. The question would be the inexperience that he would come in as being the head coach for the first time, right? Who would be his staff, right? This is where you might consider him keeping a guy like Jeff Ulbrich to come in and stay as the defensive coordinator. But with a guy like this, same thing I said about Kevin Stefanski, is a guy you don't have to worry about, being poached by another team because the offense is playing so well, because it will be his team, and he don't have to worry about somebody taking his coaches, go coach somewhere else. So that's where you look at um, another offensive minded coach. Right now, when you look at it, the five guys that the Atlanta Falcons have interviewed, it's only two offensive minded coaches. That's Kevin Stefanski, and that's Clint Kubiak. The other guys have been guys like Jim Harbaugh, who built his chops just being the ultimate team builder, right, for 18 seasons. You got Duran, who's up and coming, but on the defensive side of the ball, where he built most his accolades from to build his resume. Then we're going to talk about the last guy, Anthony Weaver, here in just a minute, who's also built all his experience being on defense. So right now, out of the five guys that Atlanta Falcons interviewed, only two have been offensive coaches, which kind of make you wonder: are they trying to go defense again? That's the question, right? Because they only interviewed two offensive minded coaches so far. So that would be a really good question to kind of think about. Um, I'm not particular about the man. I want someone who will hold players accountable and that will be actually make adjustments. There is none of this year at all. Even with the interviews were the same. So you saying that you really don't know about who's out there. You just want somebody. And like I said, man, I can tell you, if you ever been in an interview, right, in any job, you can bullshit interview, say all the right things, man, and sell the team a bag of goods, and then come in and don't deliver. So, you know, this like I said, it's a crapshoot. To be honest with you, because you really don't know, man. Like we talk about John Harbaugh come in, but he might come in and it can't replicate what he was able to do with the Baltimore Ravens. It could happen, right? Um, so hopefully, with the brain trust that's going through these interviews, get all the right questions, ask all the right questions. They got the consultant team in there, and see if the guy that they're bringing in is made of the right stuff. Guys the stuff that was identified, being able to hold people accountable, not so loyal to guys where you're not making sure they doing their job like they're supposed to do it, and then being able to make those adjustments um, when your initial game plan ain't going the way it is, and be able to switch it up and make things right. If you look at an interview that Clint Kibiat did recently, and one of the things that impressed me about what he said is it's more than one way to win, right? And you have to be able to understand that going in, because you know other teams get paid to play too. They get paid to scheme. They get paid to stop you. So you know you got to be able to counter, and then counter again, and then counter again, and then counter again. So Clint Kubiak is a guy that's favorable because a lot of people want the offense to work the way they want it to work, and you bring in an offensive minded coach. That's where you start to think about stuff like that. All right. Clint runs a two running back set. He would be perfect with the Atlanta Falcons. There you go. So you have a favorite, somebody that really likes Clint. We'll see what he'll be able to do if he becomes the guy. All right, the last guy, guys, is Anthony Weaver, and Atlanta Falcons actually interviewed Anthony Weaver the last hiring cycle. So yes, he's been a name out there for like the last couple of years. Um, Somebody might look at this and saying that it's another Rooney Rooney interview, right? Just trying to meet the quota. But he is a guy that's really up and rising young coach that a lot of people are looking at, right? Um, a lot of people won't give him his due. The way the Miami Dolphins looked the last couple of seasons up under his tutelage. So um, it he would be somebody that would really, in my opinion, impress the Atlanta Falcons. And I think played in NFL, he would be somebody that holds somebody accountable. So Kevin just talked about holding somebody accountable. I think he would be that type of coach to come in and hold somebody accountable because the position he played, you know, in the NFL on the defense side of the ball, hard nosed, don't take no shit. Like he would be that type of guy. And the question would just like I said, who would be his coordinators? That's my big concern when I'm thinking about the Atlanta Falcons move forward, because I think we really were hurt these last couple seasons about the guys that the head coach decided to bring in to be his signal callers on both sides of the ball, and then they even include special teams, right? that would be the question for me, right? You have to, and of course, he already have guys in mind. I would just be interested to see, um, and keep in mind, everybody do not work well with your quarterback, and that would have to be the consideration as well. Like, I'm just going to bring in this guy because that's who I want, but does he work well with your quarterback? Can he develop your young quarterback? Can he get Michael Penix, to his heights? You know what I'm saying? That's what you want to know, right? Because at this point in time, that needs to be the Atlanta Falcons, going at least into next 2026. Is Michael Penix the guy, right? That's just my opinion. They got to find that out. I know a lot of people, want the Atlanta Falcons to win right away and things like that. I don't think they need to worry about that. I think they need to figure out if they got a franchise quarterback first, right? You can't win if you ain't got your quarterback, man. So until you identify that, you know, when it's going to be, hopefully you get into the dance while you're trying to figure that out. Now, what they can do is build around, you know, the uncertainty of the quarterback position, and you bring in a good coach to be able to do that. But man, it, don't expect the Atlanta Falcons to come in and be like, we're going to win right away, because you don't have the guy right now. If you looked at the playoffs this weekend, you need a guy. You need a guy. Did you see how many fourth quarter comebacks it was this season? I mean, this wild card weekend, it was ridiculous, and all was quarterbacks, but it was play calling too. So it all matters. It was quarterbacking in playoffs, right? Look what Matt Stafford did. Look what Brock Purdy did. Look what Caleb Williams. Woo! Did everybody see that throw on fourth down? That was awesome, right? Look what Josh Allen did, right? We seen the comebacks, right? Look what young Drake May did, right? We seen these young quarterbacks be impressive, right? Then you seen the other side, right, where Trevor Lawrence, too many mistakes, right? Justin Herbert, they got that coach. I just think I think the Chargers got that coach, because that was really the only game that wasn't close. But man, did you see the quarterbacks? You're going to see a veteran quarterback tonight, and Aaron Rodgers. You're going to see a young upcoming quarterback in C.J. Stroud. We're going to see who's going to make the most mistakes, right? We do know who's calling the plays for Aaron Rodgers, right? Arthur Smith. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. Right. But there you have it, guys. Those are the five guys that the Atlanta Falcons have interviewed so far. Um, Anthony Weaver, Clint Kubiak, Aiden Dure, Kevin Stefanski, and John Harbaugh. Those are the guys that the Atlanta Falcons have interviewed so far. Now, it's been reported that Atlanta Falcons have requested interviews with, of course, Mike McDaniels, right? They have requested interview with him, another offensive-minded coach, right, to come in, and we know he's like a little mad scientist. The way he called plays, right? He just didn't have the quarterback to help him out in Tua Tagovailoa, um, and they kind of fell apart there. Um, their relationship towards the end. You go back and look when he first got there, though, the way he had the offense humming, right? He looked really good. The defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, Ivero, uh, Ivero, right? The defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, and of course Robert Saleh is another guy that the Atlanta Falcons have requested, um, to do an interview with. So that would bring the total to 8. I know somebody mentioned the defensive coordinator out of Green Bay as well. That would be 9. It'd be interesting to see who the Atlanta Falcons decide to go with. Who's going to be the next man to lead this era, man? That's what you're going to have to ask yourself. But um, this thing, we don't want it to rush, but at some point in time, you know, this within the next week, guys, these vacancies are gonna start to fill. I just can't believe it. Everybody waiting on John Harbaugh to see the decision he make. I think once John Harbaugh makes his decision, I think every other domino is going to fall after that. So that's pretty much what we're waiting on. Waiting on John Harbaugh to get through with his coaching interviews. We did have a report today that you know it was between the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants. Don't know how true that was. We also heard another report that um, he was really enticed about the salary cap that Tennessee Titan had, and they already got their quarterback. With Cam Ward there. So that was another team that was interesting. The Miami Dolphins, the ties that John Harbaugh have there as well. So, you can't believe everything you hear. It was reported that it was going to either be the Giants or the Falcons, but how true is that, right? And then the loser was going to take Kevin Stefanski. That was the rumor that was out there, right? And both of those guys are veteran coaches. Really, those are only two veteran coaches in the hiring cycle. Of course, unless you want to count Mike McCarthy, because people kind of forget about him. But you know, I guess he's only going to a select teams that actually want to interview him. Atlanta Falcon has not requested an interview with Mike McCarthy, so I guess he's not on their radar. But out of all other coaches, most of these guys would be first time coaches. Mike McDaniel would definitely be a second time coach. Cliff Klingberg is another guy that was a coach before. His name been thrown out there as well. But you see the Mike McDaniels, the Cliff Klingberg guys that have offensive chops getting the opportunity to go in and see what they'll be able to do. So there you have it. A guy like Robert Saleh coming in with his head coaching experience and what he was able to do with his defense from the San Francisco 49ers this season with all those injuries that they sustained, the performance that he was able to put together last night, even though the Eagles helped him out by some of their play calling and mistakes that they made, but you have to tip your hat off to the performance that Robert Saleh was able to put together, down the stretch with these San Francisco 49ers because they missing so many of their leaders on defensive side of the ball. So, guys, I'm interested to see what you guys think about the hiring cycle so far. Um, we'll definitely get to hear from the president of football tomorrow and Matt Ryan and hear what he has to say about you know the future of this team, um, what his really philosophy. Can we get anything from him? Get some sound bites, and we'll come back in and talk about that tomorrow. So, and hopefully we get some more head coaching interviews to go and see how that looks as well. So, Atlanta Falcons was the first one to interview John Harbaugh, right? Trying to get ahead of the game, but he did lead the building. So he's going to hear out the other teams as well. And he has that right. Like I said, once he makes his decision, then I think all the other teams will go ahead and make their decision. Well, Eddie says, again, another rising star, Weaver. However, the first time the team is ready to become competitive, he is another Tomlin type. Right. That's why I said he's one of the guys. He's like I said, he was in the last interview cycle for the Falcons, so it's somebody that they have already seen before. They bring him back in, and he must impress Arthur Blank the first time to garner another interview this time. And that's one thing with Arthur Blank, he can see the growth from the last two seasons and decide that maybe he's ready now. And it was where he wasn't might have been ready 2 years ago. So we'll definitely get to see. Caleb can run, but he railed on his QB and skill set. Man, that guy, he's amazing, man. One thing what I found out about the young man this weekend was no quit, man. They was down and out. They was down 18 points. The kid never gave up. He kept playing, and that's when his God get the talent kind of took over for him. He said Weaver is a lighter version of Raheem. No, 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 sir. I have never heard anything. I haven't heard Weaver even talk, so I can't speak on him. So um, it's just Pokemon. Don't know what that means. But there you have it, guys. Let me know what you think about the Atlanta Falcons coaching search. Like I said, Matty Ice supposed to speak tomorrow at his press conference. Introduction of him being the president of football. Supposedly, Greg Beadle and Mr. Arthur Blank will be there as well. And then we can see, can we get an update on the coaching searches, the GM hire as well. Everybody anticipating. I think it's kind of not a secret who we think going to be the GM, but he's still playing right now, right? So, and that's Ian Cunningham. I think a lot of us feel like he's going to be the next GM for the Atlanta Falcons, but we're still waiting to see if um, it's going to be after they're through playing in the playoffs. Maybe they be the team that go all the way to the Super Bowl. We just don't know, right? They got a big game coming up here next week against the who the Bears play. Is it the Rams? It's the Rams, right? Yeah. So the Bears play the Rams. If I'm not mistaken. Divisional round. Yep, the Rams. So the Rams got to go to Soldier Field. Um, 49ers got to go to the 12s. That's gonna be tough. Buffalo got to go to Denver. Good luck, Josh Allen, with that defense, man. And the Patriots take the winner of tonight's game against the Texans and the Steelers. So getting close, getting close, getting close, getting close. Um, Matty Ice is one clean brother. We're gonna see what he be able to bring to the table, man. He can be clean all he want to, but he better turn his team around, or they're gonna be calling for his head. The interesting thing about this, man, this is his era, 100%. Arthur Blank late cleaned the slate for him, so his hire, his decision, all this stuff is gonna be on Matty Ice. So hopefully, take your time, make the right decision, and don't be afraid to make changes when you need to make changes, man. That's what I would say, for him moving forward. But guys, there you have it. Our talking about the five coaches that Atlanta Falcons have already interviewed. Um, and we'll see where they go from here. Tune in tomorrow when we talk about Matt Ryan's press conference and see if we got any more updates on the coaching staff, GM, etc. Right? Um, Definitely know he's going to get asked about Kirk Cousins, the quarterback position, all those things. I can promise you he's going to get asked about Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. That's hands down. He will get asked about that. He will get asked about the quarterback position. Um, he's going to get asked about the GM position. So we're going to all the questions that we kind of, asking right now. If they're good reporters out there, they're going to ask the right questions. So I definitely think that he's going to do that. All right, there you have it, guys. Tune in tomorrow for the next show. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.